If somebody online tells you to kill yourself, maybe don't do it. Maybe don't do it. And if you're the type of person to do it because someone says it, maybe you deserve it. Call me controversial, but maybe you deserve to kill yourself if someone online tells you to kill yourself and you're gonna do it. Oh, an anonymous person on one of my comments said I look fat and I should kill myself. I'm gonna do it. You know what? Do it. I'm gonna call this episode Kill Yourself. That's gonna be the new episode name. And then Justin Trudeau's gonna come after me. And when I go to prison for life, just remember these words. Remember this podcast. Remember Canada Won. Bonjour, hi, and welcome back to another episode of Matthew's Always Wrong. And today, look at this. We got a new mic. We're upgrading. We're moving along. We're gonna get Canada Won out there. We're gonna get more people in the movement. But today I've got a lot of news I want to go over. A couple of free speech infringements that the governments are trying to push on people. A few stories about China, But the first story I really wanted to get into was another Boeing story. Last episode talking about how they allegedly murdered another, whistleblower. Just a few days ago, there was a Boeing plane that was trying to land in Turkey, in Istanbul, which was coming from Paris. So it was doing a Paris to Istanbul flight. It was a FedEx cargo ship. It's a 10-year-old Boeing plane, which seems old to a lot of people. The thing is, most planes are usually good 20, 30 years out. Usually a plane becomes old once it's more than 30 years old. So it's kind of odd that the front landing gear of this Boeing plane just happens to be another Boeing plane that's failing, messing up. Just happens that they're not able to deploy the landing gear and they have to do an emergency stop. They're now doing an investigation into what happened. Boeing says that, look, it's not our fault because it's up to the airlines to actually keep up and maintain the planes. Well, maybe you wouldn't have to keep up the planes as much if they weren't, defective. I'm just saying. I don't actually know. Maybe Boeing's planes are perfect. Maybe they just, the two whistleblowers just happened to die. Maybe that the law firm representing the whistleblowers just came out saying, guys, we still got 10 good, safe whistleblowers. Boeing won't be able to kill them. It's basically what they said. It's just a coincidence that all those people died. Just a coincidence. The last guy being 45 and just, he's being an active guy, 45, quite young, without any comorbidities or predispositions. He wasn't obese. He wasn't diabetic. No, he just died of influenza. All right, you know what, Boeing? I support you. Don't kill me, please. Please don't kill me, Boeing. But today what I really wanted to get into, that was just like an opening fun story to lighten up the mood. What I really wanted to get into today was a few bills and government actions regarding free speech. So what am I talking about? I want to go over first the Antisemitism bill in America. So the House just passed this Antisemitism bill in America, which basically strengthens the hold over free speech and censorship when it comes to anti-Semitism. It's a massive free speech infringement, right? So what they're saying is that it gives power. This bill gives power to an international non-democratic agency, the International Holocaust Remembrance Agency, gives them power to say, look, here's the definition of anti-Semitism, which in the bill, it's not, there's not a definite definition. It's a very wishy-washy, ever-changing definition of what anti-Semitism is. But one of the main concerns is that, this is going to be used to persecute perhaps Christians who go, look, in the Bible it says that the Jews were killed by, Jesus was killed by the Jews. I don't know. I don't really care, and any criticism of Israel is considered anti-Semitism, even if it's warranted. So now you have a lot of people on both sides of the aisle coming out against this bill, saying it's basically a complete infringement on not only the First Amendment, but it gives so much power to one of these globalist organizations that maybe it's not great. Maybe it's not good to keep giving power to these large organizations, the UN, the WTO, the WEF. Maybe we should stop giving more power to these globalist elites, and maybe we should fight for rights here at home. Not only does it increase the stringency regarding anti-Semitism and how anti-Semitism can be charged, right? So it's hate speech. That's what they're putting under. They're going, guys, we have to stop the hate speech. You can't say anything about Israel. You can't say anything about the New Testament. We're going to fine you. We're going to put you in prison. We're going to enact, the Bill of Rights, the Charter, or whatever the American equivalent is. Not only that, but this is the most alarming part of all of this. It also gives power to government agencies to go to college campuses and just listen. They have to go to these college campuses. They've got government agents going to these institutions to listen, to monitor anti-Semitism on the colleges. And this, of course, this whole bill is coming as a reaction to all the pro-Palestine protests, where you have a lot of these people, a lot of them aren't Canada One, a lot of them aren't Canada First or America First, and they're screaming, from river to the sea, Palestine will be free, or kill all Jews, kill all Zionists. Now, do they have a right to protest? Yes. Do they have a right to free speech? Yeah. But if you're saying death to the country you're in, I'm just saying, bring out the police and crack down on these people. That's all I'm saying. Because I don't believe you should be able to have the right to have free speech. You're in a country that gives you free speech. And what do? You go, death to that country, death to Canada, death to America, and they're burning the flag? Look, it's not a great situation, especially when you have all these, these people who are fundamentally against the democratic institutions in which they've been able to prosper, they've been able to live in. All these people are going to 50,000 a year universities and they're screaming, I'm the victim, death to America. What does that say about the society? And we talked about this last episode about how these Marxist ideals, these communist ideals, have been able to propagate throughout all the college campuses and through the government leaders. And it's why you're seeing all of a sudden all the leaders of the world who have roughly the same ideologies regarding immigration policies, regarding gender ideology, regarding, free speech and all these other things, is because they all grew up in a university system, in an education system, which has been infected by foreign actors. Not only are these places already these liberal strongholds and these liberal proliferation grounds, but you do have genuine foreign actors, likely Russia, likely China, who wanted to see the destruction and who want to see the destruction of the Western world. So how do? They go to the campuses, they infect these people's minds, they corrupt these people, they bring parasitic ideals. In what normal society would you have queers for Palestine? Does that make sense to these people? Because, listen, I'm not gonna make a statement on Israel or Palestine, whose side is better or whatever. But here's just a fact: if you're gay, if you're queer in Palestine, you're gonna die. You're gonna die. That's not even a conspiracy theory. That's not whatever it is. That's just a fact. They'll kill you. They'll stone you to death. And it's happened before. It's all over the news. But if you're gay in Israel, you go to Tel Aviv and you go, I'm gay. Are you going to get stoned to death? No. That's all I'm saying. So why would these people, why would these leftist woke-tards be supporting an ideology that fundamentally does not support them, that doesn't, that actively goes to destroy them. It's because of this parasitic mind. They've been able to infect people into thinking, well, look, I'm a victim, they're a victim, we must be aligned. Even though the values don't align whatsoever. You have no relation to the Palestinian people as a gay person or a trans person in America or in Canada. A trans person in Montreal or Toronto are not oppressed. And they're definitely not as oppressed as the Palestinian people. That's all I'm going to say. Your problems aren't the same. You don't have the same problems as these people. So that's why you've seen such a proliferation with these ideas, is because they see themselves as the victim, they see the other people as victims, and they're all coming together. Again, it's like this melting pot of all these people who fundamentally would never have agreed previously, but all coming together to fight this single woke ideology, or this woke idea. Again, am I saying that it's good that Israel's killing a bunch of people? No, it's not good. War's bad. War's always bad. But when you have the same people who go, BLM, and they were rioting, and you got the same people now going, Free Palestine, fatties for Palestine, queers for Hamas. It's very odd. It's a very odd thing to see, and you wouldn't normally have seen this. So that's why all these lawmakers came in and thinking, well, here's the solution. Let's not let people talk badly about Jews. Let's not let people criticize Israel in the midst of a war. If you had any other country try to pass legislation like this, it would be seen as a massive, the UN would get involved. It'd be a massive free speech controversy. If China went, or if Russia went, you're not allowed to talk about Jews. Do you not think the US and every Western country would put on sanctions? But when America does it, it seems like, good job, guys, we did it. We did it. We fixed anti-Semitism because now they're not allowed to criticize anything. And now we're going to monitor the colleges so that if we see someone speaking anti-Semitically, you're gone, you're done. Oh, what does anti-Semitism mean? Don't ask. We decide. Not only does the country not decide, it's a foreign globalist entity that's allowed to essentially regulate the American population. And then that raises the question, in Canada, we already have quite weak free speech laws where you have this growing hate speech movement where the government really wants to protect people against so-called hate speech, which I see the intent. I understand the idea. Look, guys, it's not good to say that whatever race is bad. It's not good to say fuck you to a certain person. So they're probably well-intentioned, but what they don't seem to understand is that it's a very slippery slope when it comes to free speech, because once you begin banning certain things to be said, or you start enforcing certain things to not be said, it becomes a very slippery slope, because whenever they write these laws, it's always super vague, it's super ambiguous. You can't say hatred towards a minority group. What does that mean? What does hatred mean? And then what essentially happens is that as the government becomes more and more powerful through the addition of more and more laws, it becomes more and more restrictive in terms of what you can say by imposing more regulations, more rules, more laws on restricting free speech. And then what happens is that it becomes politically motivated. So then they can use those same laws that they introduced, which they said was for the betterment of society. They can now use that against their political opponents, against any of their opponents, business people that they don't like. Usually what happens is that people on the left will use it to attack people on the right. And it's this dual standard that you've seen all over the Western world, where, if you have a leftist protest who causes a lot of damage, there's no crackdown, there's nothing. Looking at the BLM protests or even the pro-Palestine protests. But then well, to a much lesser extent, but mostly the BLM protests. But then when you have these more right-wing protests, like the trucker one, or like if you look at England or in Ireland and a lot of Europe, you have all these patriots going, stop immigration, it's too much, we can't handle it. Then you got the government crackdown. Now the government's all of a sudden, they're going, I don't like what you're saying, your protest is illegal, and then they brutally crack down on these protests. So it's this hypocritical contrast that you're going to have. And as you keep introducing more and more of these laws, it becomes more restrictive, and it just gives the government more power. Fundamentally, we can't give the government more power because they're, by definition, trying to expand. They're trying to increase their grasp on people. And free speech that's why it's the First Amendment in America. That's why it's in the Bill of Rights, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. To a lesser extent in Canada, because we don't have as strong of a constitution as America does. But there's a reason why the founding fathers of Canada, of America, of these countries, they predicted, governments want to become tyrannical. So we have to set out a set of things that protect against government tyranny. And they saw free speech because if you can't criticize someone, then you kind of know who's in charge. That's all I'm going to say. What do you see in a lot of dictatorial countries? Don't criticize the government. Don't criticize the regime, because they'll put you in prison. They'll kill the political opponents. They'll kill, public dissidents. When they're in power, they don't want people speaking ill about them. So now when you look at Western countries and you see how they're beginning to crack down on free speech, you see the exact parallels. Joe Biden doesn't like when people talk against, a lot of the people who are his constituents, who pay for a lot of his campaign. George Soros definitely doesn't want to see more anti-Semitism. And again, I'm not saying anything but giving these governments more and more power is fundamentally a wrong idea. You can't keep giving Justin Trudeau more power over what you say and what you say online. And this brings the perfect segue to Bill C-63. Bill C-63 is the Online Harm Act. It is, quote, the most expansion of Canadian hate speech law and create North America's most rigid regulatory environment for media and social media companies. Now, what does this mean? It essentially expands on previous regulations regarding how free speech is conducted online. So when looking at all these social media companies, they go, if you say hate speech, there's some, let's say you threaten someone online, there's already a legal framework behind that. Because there's a difference between criticizing, let's say, a regime, and then going, I'm going to kill all black people. Right? There's a difference between going, I don't like how a lot of Afghans in Germany are causing a lot more rapes than the native German, versus going, I hate all brown people. There's a difference. Or I'll kill all Jews, right? There's a difference when you look at it, not only in terms of the law, but in just terms of a moral standing. So what these laws are essentially trying to do is they're trying to expand the scope of that regulatory framework. They're trying to go, look, here's some stronger penalties. Stop saying you hate all the minorities. That's what they're trying to do. But in practice, that's not what's happening. So let's go over what this actually does. They're basically saying any hate speech regarding race, nationality, language, color, religion, sex, age, disability, sexual identity, or sexual orientation if you have any hate speech regarding those, there'll be much bigger penalties. And what are the penalties, you might be asking? Oh, up to life in prison? Justin Trudeau? Justin Trudeau's telling us that if you say anything bad about language, color, religion, sex, age, disability, sexual identity, or sexual orientation, you could have life in prison. But yet you have people stabbing each other in British Columbia and they're just getting off on probation. Think about the society we live in. An illegal migrant murders someone and they get let off bail a week later, but yet someone who criticizes the immigration system, they get fined 6,000 euros in Germany. Think about the world we're living in and how the governments, they're definitely focusing on one group of people. Is it obvious who they're focusing on? Because in practice, when looking at these hate speech laws, yeah, they say race, nationality, language, color, but it very rarely happens where the courts will prosecute someone for saying, for example, there was this TikToker, I don't remember her name, in America, and she's waiting in line and she goes literally on Instagram live, as a white person's waiting in line in front of them. And she goes, they have the audacity to stand in front of me. I hate white people. And then she goes, people are going to call me people are going to call me out on that, but I'll just call them racist for saying I hate white people. So historically, these types of laws have been used to prosecute more or less a certain demographic. And you're looking at that demographic. It's white men, white Christian, European descendant, white men, straight men. And apparently we're the issue. Apparently we caused all the problems. We're the colonizers. We caused all the racial injustice. Am I sorry for that? No. I don't care. Truly, I don't care. Were bad things happening in the past? Yes. Did every culture participate in that in the past? Yes. When looking at slavery, first of all, there are more modern slaves today than there were at the peak of the slave trade. China right now has like 40 million slaves, but nobody cares about that. Nobody cares that African countries right now are under a new type of colonialism. Economic colonialism, not from European countries, but from Chinese companies. China signs all these contracts with all these African nations, and then when ultimately these African countries can't pay back the loans and all the contracts that China has given them, guess who takes over? The Chinese come in and they just work slave mills. There's still a massive slave trade in Africa. But apparently the people here who are just living in Canada trying to get by, as the country gets invaded by globalist ideas, by leftist ideologies, by mass migration, apparently we're the issue. Did bad things happen in the past? Yes. But the Asians, the Japanese were some of the most brutal people in history. The rape of Nanking, anyone? You look at Korea, who had the longest unsevered chain of slavery in history of humanity. So you want to say all these ideas that, the natives are getting destroyed by the Europeans. Look, they signed the treaties. That's all I'm going to say. They lost the war. Why is there such a duality between when you lose a war and you have to cede territory versus, natives versus quote-unquote European colonizers? Did they not fight? Oh, they did fight. And they also signed a bunch of treaties selling off their land? So what's the issue? Oh, well, they didn't know about the treaties. They couldn't read it. They were misled. How is that my fault? One, how is that my fault? Two, in war, okay? When you lose your territory. It's what's been happening all over Europe forever. But we never say that France colonized Germany. We never say that, Spain, France, they've all been at war. When Napoleon took over most of Europe, we never said they colonized it. No, they just lost. All the other European countries lost the war. When Sweden was a massive empire, nobody goes, they're colonizing the Norwegians. But whenever the British or the French, they come to North America, they beat out all the indigenous people, and they also give them free land, let trade between them, also signed a bunch of treaties saying that the land is now ours. That's colonialism. That's, sometimes you got to kind of think about these things and how the proliferation of leftist ideologies is quite detrimental to our society. But going back to this hate speech thing, because I went on a little tangent, not only can you get up to life in prison for not only the hate speech you will say, but any piece of hate speech you've ever said online. Think about that. Any comment you've ever put online could be subject to putting you in prison for life. Not only that, there are more penalties. For a singular person, up to 6% of total income or $10 million, whichever is greater, if you are found to have committed hate speech. If you're a company, up to 8% of total income or $25 million, whichever is greater. Does this not look like an attack? How is nobody seeing this and going, this isn't tyrannical? Oh wait, they are seeing this, but the liberal NDP government, they don't actually care. They want equality for all. They want more fairness. So we have to demonize the white man, because I think Justin Trudeau's got a lot of white guilt going on. He doesn't, I don't think he's very happy with himself. But they're going, we need to protect all these people, which, okay. But when you start banning speech, again, it's a very slippery slope. It's not good for democracy if you can't say certain things. Already has cancel culture essentially been a form of self-censorship, because when people see that you can get canceled for saying anything, not only does the act of canceling someone is a form of censorship, but now when people look out and they go, maybe I don't want to talk about the abortion issue, maybe I don't want to talk about immigration policy, maybe I don't want to talk about crime or multiculturalism, they begin to self-censor because they don't want to get banned off YouTube. They don't want to get banned off Instagram, Facebook. Which I get. Look, you don't want to lose your livelihood. I understand that. I 100% understand the need for self-censorship. But does that seem like something in a normal functioning democratic world that you'd want to have, where you can't criticize or you'd be ostracized for bringing up certain topics? Yeah, that doesn't sound very democratic to me. That's all I'm saying. So what is this type of hate speech that they're referring to on race, on nationality, on religion, on sex, or whatever? Basically, they establish 7 types of harmful content online that they want to talk about. The first one being sexually victimizing a child. So a lot of these are against children, which, okay, sure, fair enough. You want to protect the kids. I get it. Posting intimate conversations without people's consent. Okay. Bullying a child. God damn it, you can't have shit anymore. You can't even bully people. First, here's what I think. Let me give you my 2 cents on this. Without bullying in school, people become soft. I think bullying builds character. Do some people kill themselves? Yes. Yes, some people, sometimes they kill themselves. Some people, they don't have a good time. But is being nice to everyone and affirming every single ideology or idea that everybody has all the time, is that a better option? No. It creates a bunch of soft, entitled people, and that's why you have all the boomers going, Gen Z so entitled. And yeah, you see it. You see it. And there's a reason why. Because throughout the education system, this idea of coddling and like helping all the kids by being nicer to them, by being more respectful to them, it doesn't help anyone. Bullying built character. Bullying made people more resilient to speech, and that's the type of thing. Instead of having the government tell you can't say certain things because it's going to offend some people, why don't you have people who build a thicker skin and go, oh, yeah, okay. Oh, I'm gay and you say you hate gays. You know what? I don't care, right? Now it's like, oh, you say you don't like gays because maybe you're a Christian, you don't believe in it. Maybe you're a Catholic, you don't believe that, maybe the institution of marriage is very important to you and you believe that, gay marriage is a sin or a sacrilege against that institution, which fair enough. I understand your ideology. But now you could get life in prison and then you'd have to pay $10 million to some gay person because of that? Does that seem fair? Does that make sense to you? It doesn't. It's a non-democratic and it's an infringement on free speech. So let's keep going. So bullying a child. Telling a kid to kill themselves. Inciting a child to commit suicide is another one. Which, you know what? Sure. But if you're online and you're getting cyberbullied, just turn the computer off, turn your phone off, block that person. It's not that hard. If somebody online tells you to kill yourself, maybe don't do it. And if you're the type of person to do it because someone says it, maybe you deserve it. Call me controversial, but maybe you deserve to kill yourself if someone online tells you to kill yourself and you're gonna do it. Oh, an anonymous person on one of my comments said I look fat and I should kill myself. I'm gonna do it. You know what? Do it. I'm gonna call this episode Kill Yourself. That's gonna be the new episode name. And then Justin Trudeau's gonna come after me. And when I go to prison for life, just remember these words. Remember this podcast. Remember Canada One. And isn't it odd that Justin Trudeau's introducing this legislation, and yet he would literally also be, part of this law? Has anybody seen how many times Justin Trudeau's done blackface? We searched it up. 3 separate known times he's dressed up as blackface. And probably multiple other times. Yeah, it's funny. I get it. I get why he wants to do it. But, would he not take part? No, because he's a politician, so he's above the law. He can do whatever he wants, actually. So yeah, inciting a child to kill themselves. Okay. If someone just goes KYS and you do it, you deserve it. I'm not telling anyone to kill themselves. I'm just saying you're the type of person that's weak. Maybe someone should have bullied you harder. The next one is someone who foments hatred. So if you go, here's a scenario. Maybe if you go from river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and kill all Zionists, would that be inciting hatred? No, because it's not actionable. Okay. All right. Again, it's this dual standard that, certain groups will be prosecuted a lot more than other groups. So yeah, inciting hatred or fomenting hatred. What does that mean? Somebody explain to me what it means to foment hatred and what's the actual definition besides this wishy-washy idea. Well, if you say that you want to kill someone, that's fomenting hatred. Again, all these types of harmful content are very vague, and I think it's on purpose. Let's keep going. I think this is the next one is inciting violence. So you foment hatred and then incites violence. If you go burn down all churches, right? Here's a scenario. If somebody goes burn down all churches versus someone who goes burn down all synagogues or all mosques or all whatever, who do you think is going to get prosecuted more? That's just a thought. I'm not making a statement. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Historically, what has happened. And finally, the last one is violent extremism or terrorism online. Oh, violent extremism? Oh, like white supremacy? Oh, it's all these white nationalists that are the real problems. It's all these people who think that, it's all these MAGA Republicans. These people who want to make Canada great again. You know, there are all these extremists, white nationalists. Huh. I wonder who's going to be targeted with these laws. You know, so those are the 7 ones. And how are these going to be enforced, right? So not only is it going to be creating new government agencies like the Digital Safety Commission and hiring digital safety officers, which again comes through as more taxpayer dollars to the government in a government that's already deficit spending out of his ass. But, and again, besides the life in prison and the monetary policies or the monetary penalties, it will also force media companies to increase censorship. That's basically what it is. They go, look, if the media company lets this thing happen, they're going to get fined too. They're going to get fined at a much greater extent. So, what does that mean? Well, it kind of means that Instagram, instead of wanting to pay $25 million to the Canadian government, is just going to say, look, it's not our fault. The guy here, you're breaking the guidelines. And no more free speech. You already see that all over social media, how people get banned, how people get ostracized, they get shadow banned off of, Instagram, X, not X anymore. Thank you, Elon Musk. YouTube, Facebook, Google, all these things. You're gonna get attacked for if you say certain things. And it's just a coincidence that a lot of those things are on the right. Just a coincidence. So yeah, the fact that it can apply to any comment you've ever made or any piece of social media you've ever made that they could call as fomenting hatred, incites violence. If you go, isn't it odd that 13% of the population causes 50% of the crime? Oh, you're fomenting hatred and you're inciting violence against black people. But when a politician says that black people don't know how to use computers, that's not racist? Oh, a Democrat at that? Interesting. So that's just my, that's just my take on the new Bill C-63 Online Harms Act, which again, just like the Antisemitism bill, is a massive infringement on free speech and is really something that you should be worried about and something that you should think about going into the next election. My next story is finally some good news for Quebec. François Legault, the Premier of Quebec, just announced something really based. François Legault did something based? What's happening? What is happening to society? What he said is that all new or renovated Quebec schools must now have separate bathrooms. Let's go. Let's go. Finally, someone who, women deserve a safe space to go to the washroom. Yeah, who would have thought that? Who would have thought of that? I don't know. But thank you. I just wanted to put that in. It's not a big story. It's just an idea. Now all the liberals are getting angry. They're going, what about the queer people? What about the gender, transgender, gender queer, gender neutral people? How are they going to feel? If you got a dick, you're going to go in the men's bathroom. You gotta, right? What are these gender neutral? Who are they helping? Oh, I know. I've been in the gender neutral bathrooms. You know what people are doing? They're vaping in there. That's what they're doing. It's not like, and by the way, people still go to the men's side and the women's side. It's not like they go on both sides. No. It's just so that the 10 students who just usually are the loudest ones that complain the most, who just happen to be trans, who just happen to be queer or whatever they are, wherever the fuck they are, they think they are. My gender changes with the weather. I'm gendered weather. That's a new thing where you identify as the seasons or how the weather is outside. Do these people seem like mentally literate? Do they seem mentally there? I don't know. Maybe I'm just indoctrinated. Maybe I'm just wrong. But yeah, shout out François Legault. There's a lot of criticism regarding François Legault. But I think that this is quite based, and I think he should have gone further. I think he should have just made every bathroom men and women bathroom again. But you know what? It's a good start. So shout out to him. The next thing I wanted to talk about kind of quickly is about how China is kind of making Canada its bitch. Canada's China's bitch right now. We're America's bitch and we're China's bitch. You know, Xi Jinping does not give a shit about Justin Trudeau. He doesn't respect him. He doesn't care. Look at any of the G7 meetings or any of the international meetings where Justin Trudeau and Xi Jinping are like sitting next to each other. They're not quite friendly. They don't seem to like each other. The U.S. DOJ, the Department of Justice, just came out with an investigation of TD Bank for ties regarding $653 million of money laundering. Who's money laundering it? This Chinese guy, Da Yingxi, who in 2021 had a case against him where he laundered $653 million using bribes and gift cards totaling $57,000 to bank employees. So where did he get this money? Oh, it's Chinese fentanyl drug money? Huh. And TD was complicit in it? Huh. You want to talk about how there's a crisis at the border? Just look at fentanyl deaths and fentanyl usage in America, North America, and Canada, and Europe. What happens is that China ships all these like precursor materials. They ship them to China. They get them in China. They get through all the border, all the border police, the border patrols. And they go to Alberta and they go to British Columbia, especially British Columbia, where the drugs are decriminalized, right? And what they do is they set up these fentanyl labs. And these fentanyl labs then get they make the fentanyl and it all gets shipped down to America. So then it goes through the top border where it's, they're not really looking as hard as through the China, the Mexico-US border. Because nobody expects fentanyl to be coming from Canada to America. And that's how they're doing. And then these guys are using Canadian banks to launder hundreds of millions of dollars of fentanyl drug money, which is killing 10 people every day, 12 people a day in Canada. The expected fine previously stood at $500 million to $1 billion. Now they're looking more at a $2 billion fine. Analysts at TD are saying this is going to be detrimental for not only the company's reputation, but in terms of revenue growth for shareholders in the future. They're calling it a lost decade for TD if this thing goes through and fully convicts them. But that's what happens when you got open borders. When you let anybody into a country, what did you think? And you don't even check them? Oh, they're criminals, they're drug dealers. Oh, they have fentanyl precursor materials. Oh, now they're making fent labs. Oh, now they're selling it to the populations of that country that they were let into through, the nicety of the government. Oh, now everyone's dying. Now everyone's addicted. Oh, now you've got Kensington, wherever Kensington is, the zombie city. Oh, now you got zombie cities. Oh, now you've got homeless encampments all over British Columbia and California. Oh, maybe maybe having strong borders, maybe the conservatives were right. That's what happens when you let anybody in. So this goes back to a bunch of episodes I've done. It all ties back to mass migrations. When you leave the borders open and you're not screening anybody, what did you think was gonna happen? Well, we have to be nice. We're in a position of power, so we have to let everyone. Not all of India can fit in Canada. If diversity is so great and multiculturalism is so great and bringing in mass migration is so great, why couldn't, why is it that it's our job to bring in everybody from the Middle East or Africa or India or China into the country? Just thinking about it. Maybe we should have stronger borders. Maybe so that there are less fentanyl deaths. Maybe so that there are less drug deaths, less human trafficking, less pedophilia. Shout out Drake. But yeah, maybe you should close the borders. Just a thought. And then the second story regarding China is kind of an older one, but recent news just came to light, and it really wanted me to talk about this story. So this story is kind of about this liberal MP named Han Dong. So Han Dong was elected in 2019 for the Liberal Party after another guy, Jen Tan, retired. He's just a Liberal MP. He's a member of Parliament in Ontario. And he gets reelected in 2021. But then, in 2023, he has to step down from the Liberal Party and then becomes an independent member of Parliament. Why did he do this? Well, there were accusations beginning to be thrown at him where he was being willingly affiliated to Chinese election interference. Yeah, so China's interfered with, I think, the last 2 elections. Do they know to what extent? No. But this guy, he was basically put in by the Chinese government. The Chinese government was unhappy with his predecessor, Jen Tang. So they pushed him out in favor of Dong. And how did they push him? Well, they took a bunch of students at a bunch of international and these foreign students, most of them Chinese because they only spoke Mandarin, and they bussed them to vote for Chan Dong. People who otherwise wouldn't have voted, people who otherwise don't really care, they all got bussed through direct interference. They all got bussed to vote for him. You know? Yeah, so they were unhappy with Dang, so they introduced Dong. And basically, he then goes out a little later, a few years later. He goes out to the CCP, the Chinese government consulate in Toronto. What's he doing there? What are they discussing over there? Well, they're discussing Michael Spavor and Michael Korvring's prison sentences. Basically, what happened was these 2 guys were retaliatorily put under arrest in China because Canada arrested the CFO of Huawei, a massive telecommunication and smartphone company in China. So she gets arrested in Canada. She gets arrested because the U.S. had a warrant out for her because she was willingly, complicit in breaking American sanctions against Iran through a subsidiary called Skycom. So Skycom was selling equipment. They were selling telecommunication and laptops and technology to Iran during the time when America had a bunch of sanctions against it. And she was willingly complicit in it, so America puts out an arrest warrant, and Canada arrests her. So then China goes and is like, China already doesn't like Canada, and they go, well, if you're gonna arrest one of ours, we're gonna arrest 2 of yours. So apparently, Han Dong goes to talk with the CCP about the potential release of the 2 Michaels who got arrested, the 2 Canadians. Guess what he tells them? He tells the CCP officials that their release needs to be delayed. Why? Because it would help the conservative government. It would help the conservative movement if those 2 guys were delayed. He denies all of this. Everyone denies all of this. But this is just what the report that came out says. Then Trudeau originally, what he said was that he didn't know anything that was going on. He had no idea that any of this was happening. He was not complicit in it. Turns out, it was then proved later on, much more recently, that Trudeau not only knew about the situation, but he made the decision to not act on it because it would hurt his Liberal Party's stance, his chances in the next election. He said he would only start an investigation after the election because he didn't want to hurt his electoral chances. He didn't want to hurt the votes. Interesting. Then, in April of this year, Dong testifies, this is where, that students from China were bused to vote for him as a liberal. This is in the party election, so to choose what liberal MP gets to actually be the real liberal MP. But yeah, no, so not only is there this mass scale election interference that directly involved the prime minister, a member of the liberal cabinet, and then also 2 Canadians who were under arrest in China, but they were all complicit in it. They all knew about it. And then they're going, election interference is only a right-wing thing. You know, Donald Trump is going to try and interfere with the election. Joe Biden would never do that. Oh, the government would never interfere with the election? Huh. Okay. I believe you. I believe big institutions like you. Now, the CSIS is also investigating between Dong and, you know, a senior CCP official. This guy 100% totally corroborated with the Chinese government. Again, he's saying he didn't do it. That's why he had to step down from the Liberal Party. Huh. If you didn't do it, why'd you step down? Huh. Interesting. So, yeah. That's all I have for today. But again, all these stories, look, maybe I'm always wrong. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe these stories are all fake. And I have no idea what any of this means. And maybe I'm just wrong. But thank you again for listening, and we'll catch you next time.